Hey Lou, it's me. I'm sitting under a willow next to a stream. Actually, next to two streams. It's a confluence of two streams. One, the stream that runs through the Grund, and the other one, I've forgotten its name, but this one eventually goes into the, let's see, how's that actually? Yeah, eventually this all goes into the Rhine. It's more of the Rhine daughters. And this willow, though, I'm super happy to be under a willow right now, or to be under any tree at all, but particularly this tree. So, as you probably remember, there's that plague of oak processional spinners, all over. So most of the summer I have not been able to go into any of the more wild forests here, unless I wanted to risk my life because of the allergic reactions from those caterpillars. So I've been waiting for the weather to cool down so that the caterpillars will die, which means I can go into the forest again. I fucking hate global warming and climate change and capitalist distribution, because those are the three reasons why the oak processional spinners are up in Luxembourg instead of in Turkey, where they have predators who will eat them and keep them in check. But this willow, they will move on to other trees, but willows are really low on their list. And I spent a little time checking all the leaves to make sure there were no caterpillar bites in the leaves, and it's pretty good. So willows can withstand them anyway. And but this willow, first of all, let me explain real quick. The reason why I'm kind of sitting weird is I'm having trust issues with this tripod on which this phone/camera is being balanced, because it's right next to the water, and I wanted to make it so you all could actually see the water right there. So it's balancing kind of precariously. That's why I'm kind of holding it. This willow. Alright, so you all know the story. I think I've mentioned it a few times. I was trapped in a really, really awful abusive relationship for a year and a half, year and 8 months, 9 months, something like that. And when I finally decided to escape, I had several friends who helped me do that, and also particularly my sister, who said, just come live with me in Luxembourg, we have an extra room. So I did that, and I honestly spent a lot of time in that room, not leaving. The only thing that could get me out was dinner, I guess. Sometimes I didn't even eat all of that much. But also, I would take little hikes through this area, the Grund. And I remember one of my really close friends, he has a video of me standing underneath this willow. And I'm like half crying and I'm half shouting. And I'm telling him I feel happy. Being under this tree, it was during a storm actually, soaking wet, winds were ripping around everywhere. Like, if you look at the video, you can't even really hear me. I'm shouting, and even still you can't hear me because the winds are so intense. But it's here in this spot, this willow that is sitting on a confluence. One of the streams is over on this side, and the other one's here, and they meet right back there. And this willow it's a massive willow. It's a pretty damn fucking sacred willow. Not just to me, it's just, you can tell. Unfortunately, some people leave trash here. Yeah, it was here I realized I was going to be okay. I realized I was going to survive. Not just survive, but kind of transform myself and this really shitty situation into something even better. And that's not to say transform that relationship, getting divorced. Nothing can save that. But transform the pain and the trauma into something really beautiful, which is what I've been trying to do here. So Lunasad was a few weeks ago, and I wrote this piece. Those of you who've been reading me for 6-7 years would know this piece, or if you have my book Your Face is a Forest, you've read it. It's a piece called Eleutherius, and I wrote it for Lunasi, and also Dionysus, and also a few other folks, as it were, gods. Zex are having fun. And it actually, in very obscure language, I guess, very poetic. And I wasn't trying to occult anything. I wasn't trying to hide anything. I was trying to find the fucking words to describe what the hell had just happened to me. But it involved a tree, and it involved some gods, and it involved the mothers, as it were. We're also kind of the fates, and also kind of, the ones you're not supposed to name. And I asked them, I asked them in a very difficult ritual that took me a couple of weeks to prepare, and I didn't have any guidance on this except dreams, to re-spin or reweave my fate. I wrote about this today, actually. And talk about this more, actually. It's more fun to talk about it than it is to write about it sometimes. I'm spending most of my writing time on fiction, which is more fulfilling for me right now. No one's listening to essays right now. Everyone's all panicked and freaked out and going really fundamentalist on, like, vote this or don't vote that, or everything's because of these people or this identity, and that's what we got to do, both on the left and the right. Immigrants are taking our jobs, no, like white men are the problem for everything, no, and you just go on and on. We're all falling into these very simplistic things that feel truthful right now because the world's fucking chaos, the world is burning, empires crumbling around us, and so we're looking for something to hold on to, and forgetting that all of those truths are kind of part of bigger truths, that they're not the fundamental truths that build everything else, they're just fragments of it. And everyone's kind of doing that right now. So I'm writing fantasy and fiction, and instead talking out my thoughts to you folks. So I wrote about this today. It's fate and destiny and will. We have this idea that fate and destiny are kind of the same thing. We use them interchangeable. But if you look at the more ancient understandings of those concepts, fate has nothing to do with your future. Fate has everything to do with your past, what you were born into, what you were born with. It's kind of like the astrological setup, your horoscope when you're born, right? Those are very interesting and very informative, but I like to remind people that those are descriptive, not proscriptive. That is, that horoscope tells you what you were born with, what the circumstances of your birth were, but they don't tell you your future. It doesn't tell you how you're going to survive, what you're going to do. Tarot is the same way, very much. Instead of telling you the future, it tells you what you ended up with, which most of us all kind of sort of have an idea of those things already. If you're born disabled or poor, or a minority in a country that's oppressed, you figure out pretty quickly what you got versus what people who are born into like well-off families, like where the parents pay attention to the kids and actually try to give the kids something to survive with later on, whether that's expensive education or just giving attention to the kids, teaching kids how to read, teaching them to think for themselves. That you don't have to be rich to do that. A lot of poor people will do that too. But fate is all of those things. Fate is what you're born into, what you start out with, and fate can kind of determine what you end up doing in your life, because it's like this gravity. It's like this weight on you. I was born shit poor, and trying to get out of shit poverty is very difficult. That's fate. But then there's this other pole, the pole of destiny. Destiny is, it's not written in the stars. It's not, anything. It's your potential. It's what you want, what you really could be, and it pulls against your fate. It's the gravity of the stars, as it were. It's like what pulls you up instead of pushes you down. And the thing that mediates those two is will. What you decide to do despite the shit you're born with, or what you decide to do despite all of the riches you're born with. Just as easy as it's. You can meet all kinds of people who grew up in perfect families and, had access to everything. They had all the great colleges and schools, and, their dad bought them a car when they were 16 so they could learn how to drive, and it was a really nice car, and they got everything. They were born male and white and able-bodied and all of that, and they still make absolutely fucking nothing of their life. They just become exactly what they were expected to be, or even a little bit less. And then you have poor people, disabled people, who, despite what they were given, despite the fact that they were given almost nothing, still end up doing fucking amazing things with themselves. And the way that they're able to do that is will. Like that, they say, hey, I want more. I'm going to pull myself out of my fates towards what I want, to shape my own life, not be defined by these unwritten natural laws or rules, or by society, or by systemic violence, patriarchy, racism, all of those things. And that's of course not fucking easy. That's kind of where gods come in, by the way, because there are some gods who can help with that. Now, I just back up for a second, because just because I can hear the possibility of someone saying, well, are you blaming people for being poor? It's like, no, of course not. I'm poor. I spent my entire life poor. I'm not blaming myself for not pulling myself out of that. But what I am saying is the application of will can help you transcend that, or transform all of these, all of the shit luck into something a little bit more luckier. And gods will do that. Particularly the mothers, the fates, in the more heathen lore, like the Nairns, there are, in all kinds of traditions, deities, oftentimes women or female, or oftentimes identified as female, to the people who know them, who can spin it again for you. Just, no, okay, you need a little bit more. Let me do this. And usually there's some sort of exchange, and that exchange is not always easy. And that exchange is not always advisable either. For me, it was absolutely worth it. And I'm still watching the effects of that play out in my life now, 6 years later. And yeah. And this tree reminds me of that moment, that ritual, that discussion, that exchange, that trade, that, hey, please relieve this for me. And I think that's why when I was here, that was a moment when I realized, oh, all of the shitty stuff that just happened to me in this awful relationship. No, it's still being respun because everything behind me is still being respun. My destiny is not determined by my fate. And because I will it to be otherwise. So, such is not for everybody. As I said, I can understand why some people would not want to make that choice, especially for what you lose, which is kind of everything that you think you have for something that you're not sure you'll want when you get it. But for me, it was one of the most important times in my life. Anyway, thanks for watching this. Thanks for supporting me, as always. And thanks for sitting with me under this willow. I do love this. I'll try to give you one more shot of the awesome, well, of the willow. And then of the confluence behind me. Gorgeous, yes? Alright. Be well, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.